Yolanda Williams joined author and journalist Victor Luckerson to discuss his book, Built from the Fire, the story of Tulsa's Greenwood district.
A new book called Built from the Fire describes what led to the destruction and rebirth of Black Wall Street.
News on 6's Autumn Bracey joins us now live with more on the author. Autumn?
Dave and Leanne, Victor Luckerson says this project has been about 5 years in the making. About 3 years ago, he moved here to Tulsa to tell the community's history. Luckerson says it's by spending a lot of time with descendants of Greenwood he was able to capture the true narrative of Black Wall Street. He also went through archival documents and Red Cross reports to learn about the Tulsa Race Massacre. Now, he hopes his book helps inspire the next generation to help keep fighting for justice. He says none of this would have been possible without working with descendants of Greenwood, including the Goodwin and Williams families.
What did you learn when you spoke to some of the community's current residents? And what do you make of how people are finally understanding what took place in one of the most notorious acts of mob violence against the black community in American history?
You know, Jim, I think every single person, when they learn about the Tulsa Race Massacre, the idea that this thriving community could have been laid to waste, 35 square blocks destroyed, up to 300 people killed. When people hear that, the first thing they say is, how did I not know about this? Yeah. And so it's so important for me as a young journalist to travel to this community, embed myself there, and really try to tell this story in an in-depth way. You know, it's really important for people to understand that though the Tulsa Race Massacre was a horrific event, Greenwood cannot only be defined by its trauma and only be defined by those 2 days. So this story that I put together really captures that community over the course of more than 100 years.
And Greenwood represented the kinds of communities that blacks had done on their own and was handling on their own. Talk about that, Victor. I can't wait to read your book on it.
Well, thank you so much, Reverend Sharpton. And that really is one of the main things I wanted to highlight when I wrote this story. You know, I'm a young black man from Alabama, and when I was growing up, so many of the stories that we were told about our history only centered on black trauma. Black people being enslaved during the Civil War, being beaten and hosed by dogs during the Civil Rights Movement. But Greenwood is more than just its trauma. You know, I just actually finished writing a story for the New York Times about W.E.B. Du Bois' admiration for Greenwood. Du Bois, a great sociologist, was also an economist. He visited Greenwood actually in 1921, just months before the Race Massacre, and he marveled at the closed economy they had created with black folks trading among themselves. You know, Du Bois, for example, marveled at the Dreamland Theater, owned by a black woman, Lula Williams, and the fact that she was able to keep people coming to her theater, even though they had a white theater right across the street. You know, folks in Greenwood said, no, we want to serve our black community, our black businesses. And they really created something that was really gaining national admiration from folks like Du Bois. It's such a tragedy that what these folks had built was destroyed so savagely by white folks in Tulsa in 1921.
So we know some of the story about how a lie about a young black man stole Greenwood away, but you get into some of the details of the land theft and the ongoing attack on Greenwood after the massacre. Talk a little bit about that.
You know, Joy, I think it's so important that people understand this is not just about a mob. This is not what happened to Greenwood. Is not just about nameless white men with guns going through the community. I choose to focus much more on institutions. You know, a lot of times I think people want to find a smoking gun that proves who was responsible for what happened in Greenwood in 1921. But we already have those smoking guns. You know, the smoking gun is the fact that the City of Tulsa Police Department deputized white people in Greenwood on the night of the massacre, handing them badges and stars to give them the authority to go and kill black people. The smoking gun is the fact that when one white man in Tulsa walked into the police department, a police officer told him, get busy, get a gun, kill a black person. The smoking gun is the fact that after the Race Massacre, real estate developers immediately launched a scheme to seize Greenwood land from black people in that community. And so we already understand that there are so many institutions in Tulsa that were conspiring against Greenwood. And guess what? Those institutions are still here. Yeah.